version was that the arrest came because of the highway shutdown.
They were asked to leave from the premise of being the roadway, and the ones that failed to do so were arrested.
The videotape shows the protesters off the highway. Troopers later said they were on the public right-of-way. There is no audible order for them to leave before the troopers moved in.
And they just line up right along that road there and just came marching across, all batons all set to go, and they start wailing on people. Please stop! You're on private property!
This is our lane. This is private property. Who gave them the right to come on our lane and treat us like this?
Much of the controversy over Sunday centers on this arrest. The Indians say the man being hit has done nothing to provoke the violence, but a careful study of the tape shows the man holding down a state trooper. The force supposedly was being used to make him let go. Protesters point in particular to one trooper as being particularly violent. Listening to the tape, we hear other troopers telling him to stop using his baton. Back at the protest site today, the fire still burned, as did Native American anger.
This is not over by a long way, because we're not going to let this go away. And this is a message that we're sending loud and clear to the state, to these Nazis, is nothing to suppress the truth, not even a bullet.
Now, we should tell you, Kerry, that according to the people here at the protest site, the one person who was the subject of that one particularly violent arrest is suffering from a broken arm and some internal injuries, has been released from jail. We have no independent confirmation of that, and state police aren't saying.
Bill, have the state police issued any new statements today about what happened?
No. We've been trying through the day to get in contact with the Troop D commander to get his version of what happened yesterday. Outside of the one comment from the trooper yesterday, there has been no word from state police on what was behind this confrontation.
Bill Carey with our live coverage. And the governor's office now has to decide its next move in the sales tax dispute, especially since a judge last week overturned part of Albany's deal with the Indian nations. We'll continue to follow the story.
And Kerry, the official ruling body of the Onondagas, the Onondaga chiefs and clan mothers, were quick to point out today that the protesters were mostly non-Onondagas, embroiled in a power struggle with them. The chiefs say some are leaders of the Mohawk Warrior Society, aligned with business owners who were banned from the nation 2 years ago. Chief Irving Paulus says the protest violates the Onondaga Compact with the state over free passage to Route 81 through Indian land.
A group of people who have come here.
A big story this sunrise. Central New York reacts to what happened on the Onondaga Indian Reservation over the weekend. This was the scene Sunday. New York State Police move in on Native American protesters because they claim they are blocking traffic. The clash sent people from both sides to the hospital. This morning, we're told one of the troopers involved will need surgery on his face. State police say he was lying below a man here when officers beat him with their batons. The question now, was this force necessary or excessive? Action News asked a civil liberties advocate what he thinks.
And the scrutiny is even higher on a police officer than perhaps someone who's on his land and somebody shows up on his yard. The police should be better than that. They're trained, and they should be better because they're given extremely lethal tools and the authority to use it.
It's important to note here, state troopers were not the only police at Sunday's protest. Native Americans say sheriff's deputies were there as well, and that they were not using force to subdue people. In fact, they say they felt the deputies were protecting them against more serious violence. Action News not only witnessed the Sunday's clash, we became part of it. Watch as one of our TV cameramen is confronted by a state trooper.
That's it, my friend. That's it. You're out of here. You're out of here. Who are you with? Look, you can't do that. I don't want you in here right now. Don't you understand? Don't you understand that? We'll get both of them out of there. Hey, easy with the camera. You're breaking the camera. I'm not breaking the camera. Here's your lens. Did that break it? I gave you an order not to film. I tell you, it's going to ruin relations with Channel 3. No, you don't have a right. Hey, trooper, take care of this guy here. Yep. Give me your phone. You don't have to arrest him at this point. I told him before he's under arrest. Oh, good. Oh, you did. That. Force to effect
that trooper is Major James Parmley, a commander with State Police Troop D. Now, the news director here at TV3 says Parmley should have known better.
What's disturbing about this is the fact that there would be a state trooper who would prevent deliberately, and I think the tape clearly indicates that, any member of the media from covering what is a legitimate event that the public has an interest in. What's especially disturbing is that it was the commander of the state police in central New York who did this. This wasn't a trooper who simply acted in the heat of the moment. This was the commander of the state police who you would think would know better.
Major Parmley has agreed to speak with our management this morning, and we'll keep you informed on what happens with all this. SU's chancellor is speaking up about a different fight, allegations that several students were roughed up outside a Denny's restaurant. A group of Asian students claim they weren't being served at the Denny's on Erie Boulevard. They say when they got outside, they were beat up. SU Chancellor Kenneth Shaw released a written statement yesterday. He says the school is pushing for the prosecution of those involved in beating the students. Expect to see some changes at Friendly's restaurant.
We expect in August, but we're not seeing those temperatures. Not
I
even
don't think
close.
so.
It's not even gonna. We're gonna be lucky if we get 60 today. Let's put it that way. And with those winds factored in.
Over the clash on Native American lands, we'll have that story in a moment. But first, 2 people are dead. This morning, we're told one of the troopers involved will need surgery on his face. State police say he was lying below this man when officers beat him with their batons. The question this morning, was this force necessary or excessive? Action News asked a civil liberties advocate what he thinks.
And the scrutiny is even higher on a police officer than perhaps someone who's on his land and somebody shows up on his yard. The police should be better than that. They're trained.
Others good?
100 lethal toolkit.
It's important to note here, state troopers were not the only police at the protest. Native Americans say sheriff's deputies were there as well, and they were not using force to subdue people. In fact, they say they felt the deputies were protecting them against more serious violence. Action News not only witnessed Sunday's clash, we became part of it. Watch as one of our cameramen is confronted by a state trooper.
That's it, my friend. That's it. You're out of here. You're out of here. Look, you can't do that. I don't want you in here right now. Don't you understand? Don't you understand that?
What? Look, there's Channel 9 right there. Why'd you tell me?
We'll get both of them out of there.
Hey, easy with the camera. You're breaking the camera.
I'm not breaking the camera. Here's your lens. Did that break it? I gave you an order not to film. Tell you, it's going to ruin relations with Channel 3.
That trooper is Major James Parmley, a commander with State Police Troop D. The news director here at TV3 says Parmley said.
What's disturbing about a state trooper who would prevent deliberately, and I think the tape clearly indicates that, any member of the media from covering what is a legitimate event that the public has an interest in. What's especially disturbing is that it was the commander of the state police in central New York who did this. This wasn't a trooper who simply acted in the heat of the moment. This was the commander of the state police who you would think would know better.
Major Parmley has agreed to speak with our management this morning. We'll keep you informed on what happens with that.
WSTM TV3 Syracuse. Now, TV3 Action News at noon with Laura Hand.
Good afternoon. Our big story on Action News at noon. State troopers respond to how they handled that violent clash on Sunday on the Onondaga Nation. There is now an internal affairs investigation into several parts of the incident, including what you're seeing right now, a trooper confronting TV3 News photographer Chris Barris, blocking his lens, another trooper later taking the videotape out of his camera. This morning, a meeting here at TV3 about the incident.
We were fully aware that the news media was there, and we had our own people filming the incident. We're fully aware of the First Amendment, and we were not trying to prevent anyone from filming anything, except for we wanted them to be out of the immediate area.
It was Major Parmley who blocked our photographer during this morning's meeting. He told our news director he knows he's in the wrong. State Police Internal Affairs investigators are now reviewing that. They're also going over their tapes of the Sunday confrontation to see if excessive force was used.
Thank you very much.
What do you expect to get out of tonight's meeting?
Well, the focus of tonight's meeting is really to look at the airport capacity study.
Agreement has been St. Regis Mohawks.
The dispute over the reason for Sunday's protest that turned violent along Route 81 just south of Syracuse. Now some Native Americans are thinking about suing the state police because of the way they broke up that protest. Some of the protesters say troopers used excessive force when they used clubs after Native Americans who were on the side of Route 81 tried to block the road. One of the injured was Robert Bucktooth. He claims he has bruises all over and welts on his back from being clubbed. He says he can't move his right wrist. Bucktooth's wife was also arrested. Here's what she said after she got out of jail.
In that jail, the women sang on the one side and danced, and the men sang on the other side and danced, and they could never beat that out of us.
Robert Bucktooth says troopers used Gestapo tactics to break up a peaceful protest. State police are not commenting on the methods they used.
Indians who continue to fire on the Onondaga Nation. So state police swarmed through their camp next to I-81. Police say they were left no choice as protesters began to block traffic on the highway. The violent confrontation left protesters bruised and battered and 3 state troopers injured. Protesters say the UN's Human Rights Commission should investigate the incident, but the nation's chiefs and the state police claim the protesters are a small group of dissidents, some of whom have been banished from the nation. Action News reporter Tom Blair has our continuing coverage tonight.
State police armed with billy clubs charge onto private property on the Onondaga Nation and violently make 24 arrests. The property's owner gave protesters permission to hold a ceremony on his land, but Troop D Commander Major James Parmalee says his officers got the go-ahead to come onto Onondaga land from those who have the final say.
The chiefs and the Onondaga Nation have been very supportive. In fact, as you know, they actually had us come down and they filed the trespassing complaints because many of the protesters were dissident Indians that are banished and from other reserves. In fact, the majority of the people arrested there were not from the Onondaga Nation.
In fact, police arrest records show that of the 24 arrested, only 10 are Onondagas. 14 are from other areas, mostly from Indian nations in western New York. Stonehorse Gaiman, a member of the Tonawanda Nation near Buffalo, says where the protesters came from means nothing.
Most of the people that you saw here were Onondaga people and people within the Confederacy. This is the meeting place of the Confederacy.
Honoring the chiefs, it's something a small group of Onondagas says they just can't do. They're upset that a few of the chiefs don't even have Onondaga blood in their lineage, but they also complain that the Council of Chiefs never includes the entire nation in its decision-making.
Any permanent agreement shall be voted upon by all members of the nations in accordance with laws, customs, and traditions. That has never happened.
The chiefs say the protesters are outcasts. State police say they must listen to the Onondaga's state-recognized leaders.
And as the chiefs say, they're not wanted. They don't want them there, and they're actually banished. They have no status as far as being an Indian.
It's an issue sure to burn on for quite some time. Tom Blair, TV3 Action News.
And protesters vow to keep their protest bonfires smoldering until Onondaga chiefs address problems involving their leadership. State police, meanwhile, have launched an internal probe into whether or not troopers used excessive force during Sunday's standoff.
And state police are launching another internal investigation into how and why Channel 3's camera was confiscated during Sunday's violence. While troopers were trying to arrest protesters, Major James Parmalee confronted Action News photographer Chris Barrett. He used his hand to block the lens. Another trooper later took the camera and removed the videotape. Today, Parmalee and a state police captain met with Channel 3's general manager and news director. At the meeting, Parmalee admitted what he did was wrong, but he insists he was not trying to stop the photographer's right to cover the event.
We're fully aware of the First Amendment, and we were not trying to prevent anyone from filming anything, except for we wanted them to be out of the immediate area where they were in danger themselves and where they were impeding in the police action.
Troopers from the state police internal affairs office are in charge of this investigation. Don?
Investigators say 2 people killed in a tragic overnight
happened again. Native Americans were hauled off in handcuffs with police. News 5's Brenda Tyler talked with State Police Major James Parmalee today about the weekend incident. Brenda, there is a long holiday weekend coming up now. Are the police worried that there could be another protest like the one on Sunday?
Well, I wouldn't say worried, Ron, but they're certainly always prepared. But you can be sure it's not something the state police would look forward to.
We certainly hope nothing was going on, but our hope is that the different Indian factions are working out their differences and come to some kind of an agreement.
That's our hope. We certainly don't want to have to go down.
But when they were called into action on Sunday by the Onondaga Council of Chiefs, police moved in with batons and dressed in riot gear. They've been accused of going too far, using too much force. Major Parmley says the general public wasn't there to see what was really happening.
In the particular situation we're talking about with the several troopers using physical force, what people didn't see in the shots was that there's a trooper being choked on the bottom of that pile. And the troopers using the batons were trying to free that trooper.
That particular officer, he says, now has to have surgery on a broken eye bone. But now the DA's office has expressed interest in reviewing videotapes of the incident. I asked the major if that's a concern to him.
Absolutely not at all, because the tapes, that works to our advantage, because it shows why we had to take the action that we took.
Now, of course, this all started because some members of the Onondaga Nation are upset with their leaders for signing a deal with the state concerning the collection of sales taxes. Reporting live from the newsroom, I'm Brenda Tyler.
Settlement between the state blocked traffic on Route 81 Sunday. State police moved in, making 24 arrests. An internal affairs review is underway into Major James Parmley's actions, blocking a news photographer from recording the confrontation. In addition, a team from Albany is performing a review of the way troopers handled the arrests. Also reviewing tapes of the confrontation are the county DA's office, at least one area assemblyman, and the U.S. Senate's Indian Affairs Committee. One incident has drawn the most attention. Protesters claim brutality in the arrest of Robert Bucktooth here. A review of videotape of the arrest shows troopers were using force to get Bucktooth to release a state trooper he had pinned to the ground. That trooper could face surgery for a broken bone in his eye socket. Last night, Bucktooth was released from jail and sought medical treatment for what he claims are wrist and internal injuries.
Man posted coming into your